chilling on Epstein Island, doing weird humiliation rituals for no reason, probably smiling, just doing their thing and wildin', never thinking any consequences would ever come for any of them. Little did they know that Epstein had cameras all over his whole situation. But I wonder why he didn't have more of Trump. He seems to think Trump was some kind of plant that flipped on him. He said Trump was the dog that hasn't barked and hasn't caused any motion or sound to come out him. So now I'm wondering, is he the one that's the reason that things are coming out? Cause even the victims that are saying things are not saying anything about him, and that was giving Epstein cause to doubt him. Like, is this the informant in my operation that's going to bring the whole thing down around him? But the way I perceive it is, it seems like they were running kind of opposite businesses, and maybe at one certain point they were business friends, but then that relationship turned into split ends, and when they went Splitsville, Trump used his leverage against Epstein to get him put into jail and prison so he can never get out again. But then he realized that that might come back around on him, because there's a lot of information that he has inside his brain that he could be spilling about Donald Trump, so he had him killed behind bars and tried to cover it up. I was always saying that was the most obvious, but for what people want to make it about QAnon so they can distract themselves. I was even saying at the time that QAnon was a distraction from the fact that Trump was obviously the #1 trafficker in the whole situation. He was running the ring and he was running some things, but soon as something actually happens, all of a sudden there's misinformation everywhere that's pointing fingers at everyone that isn't him and saying he's the savior, he's the king. It doesn't make any sense unless he was the one who's more culpable than anyone else when it comes to kids. I don't know, I'm just speculating like everyone else, because they won't give us the information. But it's coming out because it's gaining more momentum, and every time he says something, every time the Senate or the Congress votes on it, it gains a little bit more power over him, and he's panicking. There are people like Tim Dillon saying that his whole presidency is over because of that, and there might be some truth to it. I'm not sure. I'm holding out hope. I'm not really betting on that. Snitches get stitches, that Trump get his. I'm not sure what he's gonna get. Hopefully strung out in the street like Mussolini. That's what he deserves. Hopefully his own monster he created comes to do him in. And as for what happens after that, I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to see the truisms then. Seems like it would be pretty easy for the narrative to turn to anyone that is MAGA to be very concerned that they got duped and tricked by this guy who said that he was gonna go after the pedo rings, but then turns out he was in one of the most prominent ones and was probably the most prominent one in that ring. And it's starting to dawn upon them, even though we knew this going back 10 years at least. But he's the one in the middle. Who would have known in the first Trump administration that this would be the real scandal that would get him riddled with bullets from his own people? The Russia thing didn't work even a little. The dog that don't bark, that means a dog you can't trust. No, it doesn't. It means that there's a dog, and if the dog was there when a person broke in and stole some shit off and ran off, then the dog would have barked. But if the dog didn't bark, then that would imply that the dog had met that person before. So that gives you a clue to who they are. So the dog that doesn't bark is a clue you didn't have when you started. But it's someone that's more familiar to the family, probably someone that had recently departed. That's what the dog that didn't bark means. It means there's a suspicious lack of noise coming from one of the people in this scene. Something you would have thought that you would be hearing or never could have foreseen. But it turns out that one of the people you thought you could trust was one of the ones you should have been keeping an eye on the whole time, because they had a scheme. Who would have thought Donald Trump could have been a schemer for the ages? Oh no, for all ages. I wouldn't have thought that on any occasion. But I'm just saying, it seems like they had rival businesses, and maybe they were sharing staffing at one point. Staffing, if you could call them that, really it's trafficking. But then that turned into a dispute between them, because if Epstein was getting girls from Mar-a-Lago, then what does that say about who Trump was hiring and why and when? He was probably finding them as a way to keep his business conspiring and the money piling in. Mar-a-Lago is something that needs to be a lot more investigated, but I'm wondering if Trump has wires in every room inside of that pen. That's always seemed to be the situation. I just forgot about all the files that Trump stole after his first administration. That was a crazy occasion. His shit got raided by the FBI and shit, and then nothing ever came of it. That's ridiculous, but that's how this whole thing works. I can't believe that motherfucking gavel never came down on his head and made his whole shit twerk. Yeah, but I feel like the Trump bubble is about to burst.